You're tuned in to The Last Radio Show.
Hello and welcome to The Last Radio Show. I'm John Lynch.
I'm Jenn Reilly.
And this is a show where we talk about all kinds of stuff, news, history, pop culture. And today we're going to talk about an invention.
Something new?
Something that was new about 40 years ago, but now isn't so new. But at the time, it was maybe one of the biggest inventions of all time and changed the way we consume media and the way a lot of people really live their lives. And now everybody had one a few years ago, and now a lot of people don't have it anymore.
One of those.
One of those kind of things. We're going to talk about the VCR.
You know, I miss the VCR, I have to be honest.
Now, did you call it a VCR or a VHS?
No, VCR.
Yeah, I think most people call it a VCR.
Yeah, I don't remember. Was VHS a brand or?
VHS is actually the technical name for it because VCR stands for video cassette recorder.
Okay.
So that could be any type of size, but the one that we all had under our TV with the videotapes that we would rent movies from, that was the VHS. Which is a video home system. So the history of videotape actually started in the 50s. They started using videotape. Of course, originally movies and TV shows were done on film.
Right.
But they developed videotape, which is a cheaper process. Doesn't look quite as good as film. You know, there's that kind of weird kind of look to it, especially like now if you watch reruns of shows from the 80s that were recorded on video.
Right.
They look kind of crappy.
So all of the sitcoms and all of those shows were on video at the time?
Some were, some weren't. You know, it wasn't widely used. A lot of it was still on film, but some of it was on video. So it was in the 1950s they developed it, but it wasn't commercially available to people to buy for their home until the late 70s. So that's when the company Sony, of course, the very famous company Sony makes electronics, they put out Betamax. Do you remember Betamax at all or hearing about Betamax?
I know of it, but I don't really remember what it was.
So right around the same time that the company JVC put out VHS, which is the format that we know, Sony put out Betamax, which was essentially the same kind of idea. It was a cassette you put in a machine to play back video.
But was like it inferior to the VHS? Because I feel like I remember that.
It was actually better quality.
Oh, really?
It actually had better picture, but the problem was the videotapes were very small and you could only get about a half hour worth of video on them.
Oh, okay.
So that didn't really work well for movies, which are, usually over 2 hours or, longer. And it also didn't work because you have to, if you were going to record a bunch of TV shows, you'd have to buy a bunch of videotapes, whereas with a VHS. Remember the VHS, you could change the setting and you could record like from 2 or 6 hours or 8 hours, I think.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, if you lower the quality, you can actually get like a lot of hours worth of video on a videotape.
I have to be honest, recording on the videotapes was kind of annoying. I mean, not at the time even, it was a little bit annoying. It was like you had to fast forward, and I don't know. I felt like it was not user friendly.
We are definitely spoiled now in the age of streaming.
Oh yeah,
because you could just click the button and be right on the show. But the other thing that I think most people probably remember about their VCR was the 12 blinking on it because you hadn't set the clock right.
Yes.
Because you had to have the clock, of course, to set it to record things.
Right.
So it was the very late 70s that they had this war between Betamax and VHS. VHS won, obviously, because we're not talking about Betamax today. We're talking about VHS. And that became kind of the standard. And in the early days of video recorders, they cost about $2,000. And this is in 1977.
Sure, the first one.
Yeah,
the first.
There were several $1,000s, and they were big and bulky. And then in the early 80s to mid 80s, they started coming down in price, and they got to like about the $100 to $200 range, depending on what kind you bought.
Yeah, I had a TV with one built right inside.
One built in, sure, yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah. It was all one unit. Those were very popular. We had one in the living room that was a full VCR that could record and play back. And I had in my room, I just had one that played back.
Yeah.
It wouldn't record, it could just play. It was a player only VCR, which I don't really know if a lot of people had those, but it was a lot. So I had one of those. But right around that time, it really changed the way people watch television.
Oh, for sure.
Because you didn't have to, like, you could actually plan ahead if you were going out. You could record something if you didn't want to miss a show.
Yeah, and then people recorded over your favorite show, and there'd be a
And
big
people record over
fight.
the show. And there was a whole lot of legal drama about this too, because you know how like whenever you watch a baseball game, they say do not record this without express consent. Well, that applied to all media at one point.
Yeah,
They didn't want you, but there was no way for people to record things back in the day. But now,
right.
a lot of movie studios, Universal and Disney, sued JVC, trying to get them to take these off the market because they didn't want people taping their movies
Really?
and
Yeah, do you
watching.
remember the disclaimer was on all of those shows, and you were, like, gonna go to jail? It was
Right.
a lot. I thought I was going to jail by
The
doing
FBI thing,
Yeah.
you could if you rented a movie, you could hook 2 VCRs together and copy it.
Yes.
Not that I
Mhm.
would ever do that, if
No.
the FBI is listening right now.
Right, exactly.
But, or if you had cable, if you had HBO back in the day, you could record a movie off that,
Yeah.
when it played, you could watch, whatever your favorite movie was. Now, of course, the thing that really changed, the VCRs were very popular, but the thing that really, really, I think most of us who get nostalgic about it think about is video rental stores.
Oh, of course. I was just thinking about that the other day, how I wish I could take my kids on a Friday night to a video store.
That was an event. That
It
was a
was
big
such a
deal.
great experience.
Now, do you remember like when they first started becoming popular, videos and video stores, they weren't companies. It wasn't Blockbuster yet. It was a lot of mom and pop
Oh,
stores.
yeah.
They were like little storefronts that they had, whatever the popular movies were.
Yeah, we had Video 237. That was it. I was trying to
Video
rack my
237.
brain.
Okay, cool. And you'd have to pay for a membership, and you'd probably have to leave like a copy of your driver's license to make sure you
Yeah.
went off the movie. Because the movies when they first came out, when they started putting movies out, they were very expensive.
They were so expensive. If you lost it or you broke it, it was like, forget it. It was like
Right.
$100.
It was like $100 for a
Yeah.
movie, yeah. And then later in the mid '80s, going into the later '80s, the prices came way down on the videos, and people started buying the videos.
Yeah.
And like that's where Disney made a lot of money because they would put out their classics for a limited. Remember the Disney
Yes.
vaults? They would
Yup.
say, you could buy Snow White, but only for like 3 months, and then we're going to put it away for
That's
another
right.
2
It's going
years.
in the vault, and then you went to someone's house and they had it, and you could watch it. You're like, whoa,
Right?
is
It was
that
like holy
Cinderella?
grails.
Yeah.
And they had the bigger cases, like those clamshell cases.
I think we just got rid of a bunch of them, honestly. Like we had every single one at some point, and we just had to get rid of them. It was very sad.
It is very sad. Of course, now you watch it on Disney Plus if you wanted to watch Snow White.
By
You
the way,
don't.
my mom still has the VCR.
But I still got one. I
Oh,
still
you
have
do?
one
Do you use it?
too. I haven't used it in ages,
Okay,
but
she uses it.
I do have a bunch of stuff. Like I have like some Beatles stuff that I recorded off the television that
Right.
I wanted to keep because I'm a big Beatle fan, and some like some somewhat rare stuff like music stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of whether or not I actually like turn it on and play a video, I don't remember the last time I did that. But
We've watched it. There's a couple of things that have not made it to, like today's like old cartoons and stuff that are
Right.
only on VCR that
right,
we still have to watch them. But it's
Mm.
they're going.
right,
It's good.
right.
They're deteriorating. It's not gonna it's not
You
gonna
know,
last forever.
it is amazing if you watch them now how bad the quality was compared to what we're used to now with DVDs or streaming or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was just like, remember the tracking? You had to like adjust the
Yes.
tracking when you first
Oh.
put a video in.
Right, that's right. It'd be all like misshapen
Yeah,
and
the
everything.
wavy lines.
Yeah, the
At first
waves.
you'd have the FBI warning,
Yeah.
like you said, telling you that you're going to get arrested if you
Yeah.
pirate this. And then there would be like a just tracking thing, and then there would be a couple of commercials
Yes.
usually at the start of the video, and then you'd finally get into the movie.
Yes. Oh my God! You know what I just remembered? I had a rewind machine. Did you have one of
Oh, yeah,
those?
rewind machines. That
It
was
was just like a desktop thing, and you stuck the
right.
tape in because it was very annoying to rewind. Apparently, it took a while.
And it was wear and tear on the VCR. I think people were trying to
Hmm.
avoid, or if you wanted to watch another movie while it was rewinding, it took a few minutes. So I guess if you
Yeah,
wanted
and it was fast though. It was really fast. It was like zoom, like as soon as you pressed it down,
I
it made
remember
this crazy
they
button.
used to have a bunch of them that were always in the shape of cars. A lot of them, like it looked like a sports car, and you put
Right.
your tape in there. I guess that's to show how fast it was. I guess,
Yeah.
but a lot of the video rewinders look like automobiles, which I don't quite know why they did that.
Yeah, it's so funny. And you know what though? You had to like do something to watch a movie. I kind of miss that whole thing. You had to go to the store, you had to get it, you
Yeah,
touched it, you put it in, like there was like a
yeah,
lot of action.
yeah. No, no, there were steps. Yeah,
Yeah.
you just couldn't. You just weren't sitting on your clock. Put on Netflix and there's whatever movie you want to watch.
Yeah. There was a lot of anticipation and build up, which I
Right.
think is missing
And then
today.
going to the video store, especially when it was a new movie, making sure they had it.
Yes, right. And when they
Bec-
did, you were so excited.
Right. When a big movie was coming to video, that you could like reserve it a week or two before it came out.
Hmm.
You could like put like $1 down to reserve it.
Yeah.
Get it?
And you know what? It's so funny now. I don't know how you like scroll around to try to find a movie to watch. I find it very like difficult to find something I want to watch. But I felt it like when the VCRs were out and you just like looked at the picture, it was so much easier to choose. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah. I think,
Just
and like you said, just like the process of it. That you're like,
yeah.
if you were going to Blockbuster, you anticipated spending about a half hour there.
Yes.
Walking around, looking around, something will catch your eye.
And there were sections, right? So
New sections, you had
yeah.
comedies or action or science fiction or whatever you wanted, romance. And then like you'd see maybe there's that one that you walk by a couple of times in the previous weeks, and you're like, at this time I'm going to take that one.
Yes, right. That's true.
So you kind of always maybe you had like a mental checklist in the back of your head
Yeah, that was like a recognition. Like I've always wanted to see that. Today's the
right.
day. I'm going to see
And
that
those
one.
the covers were like super important because they were selling the movie.
Yeah.
It was a lot of times it was just the movie posters, but if a cover looked cool, you could say, I never heard of that movie, but I want to check it out now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or the classics, and you'd be like, I never saw Platoon or whatever.
Right,
Well, I guess
exactly.
Platoon wasn't a classic at that point, but yeah, it's just a different experience. I kind of miss it.
Right. So what do you think? I got here. What do you think was the first movie to be released on videotape?
Oh, what year were you saying this is in the 70s or the
The
80s?
first movies were released on videotape in 77. So I have a list. There were 3 movies that came out in the U.S. and they sold between $50 and $70, which I would have thought there were more actually. But they're 3 pretty big movies from the 70s.
I'm going to say The Godfather?
Good guess, but no. That was one. That was pretty early on, but no.
Gone with the Wind?
No. But you're in you're
I'm in the right place.
there's classics, yeah.
6. I can't even think. I don't remember. I should have
The
had it.
Sound of Music.
Oh, of course. I had that. Yes, of course.
Okay, Sound of Music. That was one of the first. Patton, the General Patton story, with George C. Scott.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that.
And MASH, the movie MASH.
Oh, I wonder why they chose those.
I guess I don't know. I guess maybe it depended on the rights of it.
Sound of Music, I could see because that was a big deal.
Sure, yeah. I think all those movies won Oscars, so
right.
They're all big movies. But the first actual movie ever released anywhere was in South Korea. South Korea released the first VHS movie, and it was called The Young Teacher, which was about a teacher who organized a volleyball game to boost the students' self-confidence.
No way. And what language was it in?
I would assume it was Korean because it came out in South Korea.
Right.
And it was not known as much of a movie. It didn't really do very well, but it does have the distinction of being the first movie to come out on videotape. So what do you think is the best-selling videotape of all time? VHS movie.
Oh, of all times.
Yep.
I can't even think. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of hints.
Okay.
It's a Disney.
Uh-huh. It's not Fantasia, right?
No.
That's probably not even up there.
It's a more modern Disney.
Oh, Toy Story.
Nope.
No. I have no idea.
The Lion King.
See, that surprises me. I guess maybe the timing of it?
I guess just the timing of it. Yeah, The Lion King sold over 35 million copies.
Right, because now we're talking that those kind of movies like The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, those all came out during that time, right?
During the heyday of the 35 million copies, that actually sounds kind of low to me, to be honest with you. Right. I thought it would have been higher. But some of the other best movies best-selling movies of all time were The Godfather, which you mentioned earlier. Yeah. Titanic, Gone with the Wind. They were
right.
And again, those were kind of like big moments when they came out on home media. That was like a big event.
Do you remember the first one that you owned or no?
Not really.
Or the first couple?
No.
Wasn't that big of a deal?
Really, no. I do remember that Billy Joel put out a VHS of like all his music videos.
Mhm.
I remember buying that. I don't,
Okay.
and I think I still have it, to be honest with you. I
I
think
know,
I
we gotta search these up and see.
go through the closet, see what's in there, but I think I
Yeah.
still have it. What's interesting about the Titanic, which was kind of the tail end of the VHS period,
Right.
the late 90s, just before DVDs started coming out, that was the first movie to be released on videotape while it was still in theaters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was actually still in theaters, but people could buy it at home. And I remember that it was on 2 tapes because it was such a long movie.
Yes.
So there was, actually, a break in the middle, and you had to change
Right.
the tapes. So that was
Yeah, I remember a couple like that,
there
actually.
was a couple of them. I think The Godfather might have been like that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe The Sound of Music, I don't know.
maybe. Yeah, they're definitely some of the longer movies because, they wanted to keep the quality up, so they didn't wanna stretch out the tapes, I guess.
Yeah, but that was so much fun. I mean, that was just like a thing to do, an event, just going to the video store
Right,
and right?
right.
Making sure you don't go behind the curtain in the back because you know what's
Right.
back
Well,
there.
that was the thing too, the mom and pop stores did have the little back room that,
Yeah.
especially when we were younger, that was, mysterious. That was,
Yeah, I accidentally wandered into that room once.
accidentally, I'm
Mhm.
sure. Mm.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, what's going on here?
Yeah, I
Get
can
back
remember
to."
I can remember going in there and, being chased out too, when I was too young to be going back there, but the curiosity got the better of me, I guess. But, so, like I said, it started with the mom and pop stores, but then the big chains started coming in.
Yeah.
And Blockbuster, of course, is the big one. There was Hollywood Video too, which was another big one.
Yes.
But Blockbuster, especially here in the Northeast, I think, was just huge and everywhere.
Yeah, they just had it dialed in. They had the snacks. So it was almost like going to the movie theater, right? When you
Yeah.
checked out, they had
Yep.
those little
Yep.
snacks and
Yep. And then,
you get all your stuff.
in later years, they even had merchandise for the movies and stuff
Yeah.
too, like posters or action figures for some of the stuff.
So they didn't anticipate because then did they sold DVD they rented DVDs as well, right? Later on?
Right. They did switch over to
Yeah.
DVDs. So they survived beyond the VCR,
Right.
into the early days of DVDs and Blu-rays. But what killed them was streaming, of course,
Yes.
because then that's really what was spelled the end for Blockbuster. And of course, it's a pretty famous story that Netflix originally started out, they would mail the DVDs to people before the
Mhm.
streaming service,
Oh yeah.
and they were going out of business. They were, losing money, and they went to Blockbuster and offered Blockbuster to buy the company and take over Netflix.
Netflix. So they
And
passed
then
on that one?
Blockbuster said no, and it was for $1 million, which is nothing,
Wow.
for what Netflix is worth now.
Sure.
And Blockbuster said, "Nah," and then within a couple of years, Netflix was the biggest thing going, and Blockbuster was out of business.
Yeah. That's rough.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. So that's what I mean about the VCR. It was very interesting. It really didn't have a long run. You
No, it
know,
didn't. Yeah.
really, the heyday of it was the early '80s till just around 2000 or so, because that's when DVDs started coming out.
Right. Okay. 2000? That seems late. I
Yeah,
thought it was
the
earlier than
late
that.
'90s, early
Oh, okay.
2000s.
Yeah.
I think 2004 was the first year that DVDs outsold videotape, and then
Okay.
that's then from there it just went from there. And of course, DVDs had an even shorter life because nobody
Yeah.
buys DVDs anymore because you can get it
Yeah.
on streaming. So that kind of killed the whole media kind of thing. But so, what do you think the last movie to be released on VHS was?
On VHS in the 2000s, we're
Yeah,
thinking, right?
2006 it came out. It was the
Oh,
very last one.
6.
Yep. And you probably have never heard this movie and you'll never guess it. So
Okay,
let
then
me
let's
just
move on. Just tell me.
A History of Violence.
Oh no, I don't know that.
Yeah, that was the last movie to come out on videotape, and that came out in 2006.
Wonder if
So
that made it to DVD eventually.
I guess it might have,
Must have,
and I
yeah.
think most of the stuff did end up going on DVDs. So again, the DVDs, they officially were released by Pioneer in 1997. And then, by the early 2000s, they took over for for the VHS as the number one format,
Right.
and they were replaced pretty quickly by Blu-ray, which just came out a few years after.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Then we had to buy all those Blu-rays, but then at that point, I think I gave up. I was like,
I think
something
most
else is
people
coming
did,
down the
and again,
pike.
that's when streaming started to become a thing too.
Yeah.
So, Blu-rays probably had the shortest life because
Although, what about those giant ones? What was that called?
laser discs.
Laser
Yeah, they were in
That
around
was
the
in the
90s.
mix, right?
Yeah, they were in the 70s. They go way back.
Oh,
Yeah.
Laserdisc But
Yeah,
then weren't they better than the VHS?
they were, but they were very expensive,
Yeah, right.
and you couldn't do any recording or anything with them,
Right. That's right.
but now, of course, you can just basically, with your cable box or whatever your streaming service is, you can watch whatever you want whenever you want.
And there's no ownership like there was, I guess, like the movies. People just kind of had to give it up. I mean, they still get royalties, but not
Right.
as much as like guarding it, like Disney would guard their
Right.
movies.
Right, exactly.
That doesn't work anymore.
Well, now Disney charges you for a streaming service that they
Yes.
own,
And you can have all of their movies anytime you want.
Exactly. The big thing is now, and this applies to Disney, they've taken some stuff off streaming. Like, not everything it's not like everything is always available.
It is? Really?
Yeah. They occasionally, some of the services, not everything is always available, or sometimes it moves to another streaming service.
Do you think that has the effect that it used to? I mean, there's a movie that I want to watch with my kids, and sometimes it's there, and if it's not there, we'll watch something else. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think there's so many choices now, and it's so easy to find something else. Like, if you're not going to find whatever you're looking for, you just say, I'll just
move on.
This is probably good too.
Right, and we watch things like 1,000 times,
Right.
over and over, so we'll just move on.
Please be kind. Rewind. Thank you for listening to The Last Radio Show. Check us out on Facebook at The Last Radio Show.
The Last Radio Show.
The Last Radio Show.